system as it now is, you have a dynamic clearance envelope for the Kawasaki car, which is how far it hangs out from the rail on curves on the inside and on the outside. So you have a dynamic outline that you have to work within if you want to run in the subway. Subway cars got to fit, and a lot of places on the streets they got to fit too. So you start out with a dynamic outline, and then you start playing around with what kind of car can you fit in on a 33-foot radius curve with the overhangs and dynamic outline that you got to live to. Whether anybody has done any of that, there's no evidence of it because it's planned. It's not necessarily engineered.
Well, right. They just want to bank that land right now for God knows when they get money for anything.
Well,
so
the only reason that I've read so far in this plan is that we need to have new facilities because the car is bigger. That's not engineering. That's so like, who knows? Who knows? If you articulate the Kawasaki car, you come up with a Boston Type 7, which is 75 feet. But you could also shorten it a little bit if you have to stay within the dynamic envelope. Whether any of that's been thought about, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
Russ, I heard somebody, and this is only rumor, years ago talking about the articulated buses, and they said that they can do a sharper radius than a regular bus, although they're longer because they're articulate. So if we got articulate trolley,
Possible. Yeah, go ahead.
no, if we got articulate trolley, would the radius be shorter there also? Or is that just internet rumor that I heard?
Well, the one thing you don't do with buses is you don't couple buses together. See. So you have to look at what you can do. If you have a car goes dead, pantograph gets tangled in the wire and you got to get it back to the shop, whatever, for any reason, you got a dead car to get out of the subway or anywhere on the system, you're going to have to couple up another car. Then you get into all the issues involved in what coupler angles you get into when you go around these hairpin turns that SEPTA has, which nobody else has. And the coupler angles get to the point where you're as much pushing the car off the track as you are pushing.
Yeah.
So all this kind of stuff all has to be worked out. And there's no evidence, like I say, at this point that there's anything's worked out. It's just that, well, an 80-foot car looks nice and all of that. So I don't know where they're going.
Boston has some sharp curves, Russ. At
The Type 7, the Type 7 is based on the Kawasaki car articulated.
Yeah.
The guys from Boston came down. I gave them a tour of the shop and everything else, and basically the Type 7 is an articulated Kawasaki. And it goes around 45-foot radius curves up in Boston.
That'd be like Park Street or at
Park Street, yeah. But you don't have any of this 35-foot curves like you have in Philly.
Nobody's here.
Probably 32 foot.
Well, just center line of track is about 35. And there's any number of those things, including reverse curves. Until you lay all that out, you really don't know what kind of car is going to turn out to be the best. Because if you go with a 6-axle single articulated, you generate certain angles. And the coupler angles get to be an issue. What you can do is chop it up into smaller pieces and maybe have a 4-section car or a 3-section car instead of a 2. And that cuts down the angles. But when you do that, you're giving up space in the car for articulations and all the mechanism that goes between the car bodies. That's dead space. So you're losing space when you chop it up. So you solve one problem, but then you got to lengthen it a bit more to make up for the space you lost with all the articulations. So there's a lot of ways to look at all this, and you really need to do all this before you can say you know what you're doing.
Charlie, we getting any calendar orders still, or is that out over?
No, I got a couple yesterday.
Wow.
Good. Well, it was a great cover shot. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
got
great.
an order yesterday for two,
Not the most unbiased opinion, but you're right.
two 2021s and two 2020s.
Wow.
Why not?
We're between us, we're down below 20, I guess.
Yeah, because that's it. Yeah,
Good.
that should be about right because, yeah, see, the ones I guess we've been is 530 and we ordered 550. So,
Yeah. I mean, what do you have? You have a single digit number left probably.
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
And I have 10 or 12, I think.
yeah.
I wonder if Vigris gets the newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why don't you give them a call? Tell them to sign in.
Yeah, I was going to email him a copy of the newsletter or the info, and
Uh,
I just finished dinner, so I didn't have a lot of time.
just give them a phone call. Yeah.
I can do that.
But then he needs to know how to get into the meeting.
Yeah,
Just-
you gotta
just-
have the newsletter in front of you to do it, really.
Well,
Oh, no, if you
tell
go,
them to check
go
his
on the
email.
meetings. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you go on the meetings on
Yeah.
the email.
You
if
can
you
either,
fi-
you can click it, or if you can't do
Well,
that,
that's what I do.
we
Yeah.
could send them the meeting number and a meeting ID.
Yeah, but Bill gets the newsletter.
Yeah, but
print-
like,
Yeah.
whether
But
he's
you
got
never
it
know
to
where it
hand.
is.
Let me give him a call.
Yeah.
It happens to my Westland community. It's just something you never hear about. So, my thoughts.
Hey, Bruce,
Hey, everybody.
how are you?
Hey, Bruce.
So far, so good. Just trying to make it.
You look
Better
like you look like a tribal chieftain.
That's my formal dress.
Okay. Looks good on you.
Thank you.
Meeting.
Only once a month.
Hey, Doug,
Hey, Rich.
what are you drinking?
Nothing right now, but I do have a glass of bourbon here in reserve.
All right. Maker's Mark.
Now it's I don't even remember what it is.
Oh,
It's a small batch thing. I can't remember what it's called. Your car looks good. Your Atlantic City car.
it's getting there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you know what I saw that was interesting? Made me think of that because it's got, a lot of curves you could mask if you don't, for parts that don't have a decal, I saw a thing where a guy used a Cricut to cut masks out of vinyl, a low tack vinyl, and use that for the masking.
Oh,
It seemed like a good idea
well,
because you can get
I-
a really nice, clean,
yeah.
edge on it.
Yeah, well, for the most part, I've gotten that, and I think where it's a little jaggedy, I can use a little piece of black decal
Right.
to straighten it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looked good.
Yeah, that's what we got to this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That holds really the door. So
That
Yeah.
looks good.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there.
What happened to the door, Bob? Did the paint flake off there, or is
No,
that
it's
just
decal. It's a decal. I covered the door with a decal and
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, that I'm just gonna patch, or I could even do a little black paint there,
Yeah, yeah,
right in there. And because I'm gonna have to poke the decal out over the windows anyhow.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm crafting up some decals. I'm gonna have some custom made for a open car. And what I'm messing around with now is making decals for the slatted seats.
yeah, I've always wondered how you paint one of those open cars. That looks like.
Oh yeah, I mean it's because you can't get at anything. It's really hard to.
Brush paint.
Although the seats come out, so
Would you
but-
look at Archer's window or, yeah, Archer's decals? The resin
no,
decals? I mean, they make a lot more than just rivets.
oh okay, yeah,
Might be able to get woven seats for them and stuff like that. even.
yeah. Well, these were the slatted wood seats, all varnished up,
Yeah, yeah.
So
Bill Crawford, you're with us.
Amazing.
Tis I.
Show your beautiful face, man.
Let's see, we'll do that.
Just turn on the camera.
Does it show?
It does. God, we were teenagers. Look at us. We're old geezers now.
All of us are old geezers.
Right.
Speak for yourself.
See Bill Greenwood's here. It's a Havertown reunion.
Yeah.
Well, this must be our version of the Hoosier Traction Meet, which is also called the Geezer Fest.
Yeah.
They all are.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I talked to Vigris and he is involved with the church thing right now, but he may come in later on. He was going to.
He can multitask.
Yeah, well, yeah.
A couple of years ago, we announced a new member who had retired from work and finally had time to join the club. And the comment from the rest of us when we heard that news was, well, that reduces the average age of the membership.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was a couple of years ago. He's back up now.
He's trying to catch up with you. Is that your first glass of bourbon tonight, Doug?
yeah, it's the first
Maybe
one I
should
haven't
get
even.
some so you don't have to drink alone. Yeah.
Tread plate. Yeah, Bob's got me off looking at Archer decals. So
Does anybody get the Shoreline magazine here? Any of you guys?
I don't subscribe to it. I buy it a la carte sometimes. What's
Yeah,
that?
the current issue has got some absolutely gorgeous pictures of Illinois Terminal.
Wow.
Just have a whole page picture of a 3-car train with the 2 sleepers and a motor car. And very nicely reproduced. And when you look at that, you say that's that was a unique property.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the sleepers were non-powered.
The what?
The sleeper cars on the IT, were they?
No, they were all trailers.
Mhm.
And the sleepers were not trying to make high speed anyway because the run isn't that long. So you're not trying to set any speed records. So, 1 motor car and 2 trailers will trundle down the line and stay out of the way, anything else, I suppose. And use up as many hours as possible in getting to the next terminal. So Peoria to St. Louis is not like, Pittsburgh to Chicago or something.
Trans-Siberian.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Maria wasn't bad. I remember, I don't know where I was driving from Utah or Arizona or someplace and came into Peoria about 8 o'clock at night looking for a place to stay, and it was nobody on the street. It had all turned in already.
Had they rolled up the sidewalks yet?
Not yet. It was 8:30.
How
Didn't
long
Kingston
ago?
Trail have a song about Peoria? Mention that?
What's that?
Didn't the Kingston Trio have a song where they had some words like that about Peoria?
Jeez, I don't remember. I just remember
Oh.
Charlie on the MTA. Did he ever get off that train? His wife was pretty smart. One sandwich keeps him out of the house.
Wonder what she had going on.
I don't know.
Well,
When I was looking on a Philly paper, they had some really neat cartoons. Now, some of them I don't know. I don't think I'd, calling women girls, and so I wouldn't think it could go on. But there were these two guys, these two neighbors talking, and one was just finishing painting, and the other one's working all over the place. And remember when they said take a vacation in your backyard so you don't travel and waste gas and everything? And that's what was happening. They were complaining about their wives had these big lists for them on vacation. It wasn't even worth, taking the time off.
hey, I see Bill Vigris is here.
Yeah, I saw he's in there.
Yeah, there he is.
Box. Good evening.
How are things at the Gulch?
Oh, he's muted
He's
and he doesn't
muted,
have
yes,
video
sir.
on. You gotta unmute and get your video.
Yeah,
Bill.
he's muted. If you're not doing it, he's doing it.
Self-censoring.
Hey,
I
Doug,
I can ask him to unmute.
Doug, I like the photos you posted on Facebook of the barn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to be done. It's been like a 2.5-month project.
It looks really good. I'm doing a car barn on my layout. You used the Corber. I'm kit bashing the IHC engine house for mine.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I meant it when I said I spent more on all the interior details and stuff than the kit cost. Yeah, it was like,
Yeah,
because I bought a whole machine shop off of Shapeways, and it had more machines, and I don't even know what half of them are,
Now, you have a pit in there too, right?
Yeah, I have a pit on one track. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's actually what keeps everything lined up, because the base slips down over it. And then I have magnets holding it down. So if I tilt the module that it's on, it won't, come tumbling off.
It really looks nice in the details. You spent all the money on
Yeah.
the scene, so it's worth the money. I really enjoyed it. Can't wait to see it in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doug, where are the photos?
On Facebook.
On Facebook, on the Traction Modelers group.
Okay.
Yeah. I put them up last night.
It's where the elite meet for trolleys.
Hey, the car barn scene that keeps showing up with red and cream cars. What's the prototype?
Oh, you mean up?
That's Mike.
There you go.
Yeah, that's SEPTA.
No, which barn?
I think that's Callow Hill. I don't think it's
Luzerne.
It is
I
Luzerne.
I would buy
Probably
I would buy
Luzerne.
Okay.
It looks like Luzerne.
Yeah.
Russ says it's Luzerne. End of
Well, they're
Yeah.
GOH,
They
they're
all look
GOH
alike.
paint
Yeah.
jobs,
Yes.
and most of the GOH cars ran out of Luzerne. You only had a handful of them at Callow Hill for Route 15.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That lineup would be up at Luzerne, where you had the bulk of the GOH cars.
All right, Russ, I give in. What does that stand for?
Yeah. General overhaul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a group of cars there towards the end that went through a general overhaul. So,
Okay.
and then the paint scheme changed, and the operators were complaining about the cars because they stopped so short because the brakes really worked.
A lot of neck injuries, right?
Yeah, right.
Workman's
I-
comp.
I used to ride the 50 to go to work up at Wyoming. And some of the stuff they had out on the road, the only way you could make the car finally come to a complete stop was to get the track brake going. And if you looked at the rails at a lot of the stops, they were worn paper thin because the shaft brakes were so badly misaligned and dysfunctional that if it weren't for the track brakes, you'd have a hard time making the stop with any sort of accuracy. Towards the end there was just absolutely no quality control or anything. And if you remember, that was a period when the buses were burning up on the Schuylkill too. And they had several cases, and that's what brought about the fact that then they got the state police into the act, where the state police would have to sticker a vehicle proving that it was safe and reliable. And of course, the cops didn't have the faintest idea of what a good working trolley was. So the whole thing was a farce. And the top foreman used to put the stickers in the car windows so they could legitimately go out on the street. It's unimaginable, really.
Well, yeah, I've got a St. Louis car, a PST St. Louis car to do. And I was looking at, it's got a lot of, like tail lights and marker lights. So I was trying to figure out how they were used, so I know how to animate them, right? And it kind of looks like they were there and they worked till they burn out, and then whatever was left came on. I didn't see one video or movie of all the lights working at the same time, except the one from the museum.
I assume by St. Louis car, you're talking about the Red Arrow St. Louis
Yeah,
car.
the double-ended cars. Yeah.
Well, towards the end, if it didn't derail and didn't make smoke, it was good for service.
Right. That's kind of the impression.
Well,
I
you
got.
mean the flashing lights
Yeah.
at
Remember?
the end? Yeah, there was a switch. There was two ways to work it.
Right.
One option was when you push the switch one way, the lights would orderly flash on the back of the car. When you push the switch the other way, then all four lights would flash at both ends of the car.
Okay.
Like a hazard light.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
See,
So they used them as a hazard light, basically.
well, and I think they used them, during like foggy conditions.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only ones, the
Yeah.
only footage where it looked like any of them were on was either a night shot or rain.
Yeah.
Huh.
No, they were seldom used on any of the cars, seldom used.
Russ, here's a question I have for you, and I always wondered. I remember the old Brills and St. Louis cars out in Red Arrow, when they stopped, the flashing lights came on the rear. And is that why the Kawasaki's also have flashing lights?
A lot of what's on the Kawasaki's is what's on the buses. The idea was, to do the same thing on the trolleys that you have on the
But
buses.
those flashers on the Red Arrow cars, they were strictly under the operator's control.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a switch. Like I say, it was like a center off of two positions. When you did in one position, they would orderly flash at both ends. When you put in the other position, it would orderly flash at the back of your car.
Charlie, did they flash in unison or alternately?
They flash alternately.
Okay. All right. Cool. That's good to know.
Well, my guess would be that one of the reasons for those was at night when you were stopped in some places that track was not very far off the road.
Right. Yeah.
The road came practically up to the edges of the cross ties.
Right.
If you watch the movies that I'm showing on the PTM evening on the 7th of April, you get a good picture of all the variations on that line as to where the tracks were relative to the roadway. And there are places where if you were stopped, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have flashing lights on your trolley.
Yeah.
Okay.
so that you wouldn't have somebody ride into you by accident.
Right. Huh. All right, duly noted. Thanks.
Oh yeah, that line could never exist today. I mean, even then, in you're running across people's driveways and past a gas station, you know, right in front of a gas station and paved area. The thing could never exist today as it was then. It's a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
And
Oh my God.
McLean took very nice out the front movies and out the rear movies, so you get a good idea of just what that right of way was like, and it's amazing that thing was still running.
I know.
It was hauling a good number of people.
Yeah.
It did.
I
In fact, I remember riding it, and if I remember correctly, the Saturday headway on that thing was 15 minutes.
Saturday and Sunday, yeah, because it was alternate to Larchmont, alternate to Westchester.
And there was a guy that got on at one passing siding, and he rode and collected the zone fares, and then he got off at the next siding and rode back collecting zone fares on when they were running the 15-minute headway.
Yeah. Yeah, my in-laws both went to Westchester and lived in Philly, so they rode it every day.
Oh, they were commuters.
In the late 40s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did read in one of the Red Arrow books that supposedly Sunday was the heaviest day in the very beginning because people would go out on Sundays to look for property to buy out there with all the building going on.
Could be. There's some shots showing the new construction, looking out the side window of the car in these movies and showing the new development out there. All of which, as it went on, you know, was not providing as much ridership as it was condemning the line to disappear. I've been out there on the bus, and the bus, even with no traffic problems, the bus still doesn't do it in the 55 minutes that the trolleys did it.
Progress, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, DeGraw said that, you know, they used to carry sacks of mail on the trolleys, and they'd open the rear door at 69th Street and throw a couple sacks of mail in on the back platform and then close the doors. Somewhere out at one of the towns, they would unload them.
Edgemont was one.
Yeah, and when the buses took over, you didn't have a rear door or rear platform, so they used a number of seats behind the driver to throw the sacks of mail on. And then all of a sudden, Christmas time happened. and it became unworkable. That was the end of the mail carrying contract.
The same rang to media well into the early 60s.
What was that?
I remember riding a media trolley one afternoon, and the operator stopped at Drexel Road to throw off a bundle of evening bulletins.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because they also dropped papers at Edgemont too. Dave Cope has a picture of that transaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, any way to make a buck.
But I was remembering the media trolley in the early 60s.
I remember that also. There was a car that a trip that came in, I don't know, 9:30, 9:45, stopped at the Upper Darby post office, which was a block from the terminal to throw off mail.
Yeah, that first station out from the terminal, right, Bill? Yeah.
Exactly. It's what 2/10 of a mile at the most.
Yeah, what's the name of that one again?
Is that Walnut Street or?
Boy, I
Walnut
forget.
Street on the Media Sharon Hill line.
Yeah, well, that's what it was. Yeah.
I worked in that post office one Christmas season, and the driest place I ever worked in my life, that Upper Darby post office. Back when they used to hire armies of kids to handle the holiday mail.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
things,
sorry,
there's progress too, because holiday mail is still being delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they keep thinking that it's election ballots.
I sent a package to a guy in Australia on the 22nd of February, and he asked, I got something from earlier this week, what's happening with it? So I went to the tracking thing, and it's in Jamaica, New York, about to be shipped.
Oh, gosh, do move that stuff around, don't they? I mean, my dad retired in Scranton from the main post office, and they built the new one right up there near Montage. And a couple of years right after that, you know what they do now? They collect all the mail, send it to Allentown. They work it in Allentown, and send it back to Scranton,
Yeah.
get delivered.
Yeah.
I
Brand
hired
new
somebody
facility.
from Conrail.
You know, took somebody sent me a kind of a note Christmas card. Well, it was Jim Wirt, who, some of you guys may know.
Yeah.
And he's 92 now, and he's in a good care facility in Pittston. And unlike Dr. Cox, he doesn't have Alzheimer's, and he knows what he's doing. He just can't take care of himself. But it took a month and a half for a Christmas card to go across the state. Now I got the note from Dr. Cox. Some of you may not know he's in a home as well. He has the Alzheimer's, doesn't know anybody. Takes 2 or 3 people to lift him up, get him in a wheelchair. And his companion said that he's very content to watch the Hallmark channel, where there's absolutely no streetcars. My wife watches that. So he's not doing well. I remember a couple of years ago visiting him, and he was very excited. He had been taking an experimental drug, and he was really hoping that it would curb, the progression. Back then, he was able to drive to the office yet down at King's, but apparently now it's bad.
Yeah, I talked to him on the phone about 3 years ago. Just by luck, he had come into his university office at 8:15 in the morning. And so I got him on his office number. As an aside, years ago, he wrote an article about the subway surface cars, the subway surface subway in Philadelphia, which was published in the
Modern
British
Tramway, wasn't it, or light rail? It was an English.
Yes, it was published there.
Yeah.
But anyhow, he gave me permission to have it published in a BVTA newsletter if we ever want to do it.
I've seen 2 versions of that. When the archives had to get moved, somebody had sent in, they had collected boxes of the different British modern tramways, the British magazines, and they were all pretty musty. And there was 2 articles. One was a shorter version of the long one.
All right, I'm not sure which version I have, but I do have permission to let BVTA or its successor reprint it.
He lost a lot of stuff in Hurricane Agnes.
Yeah.
Well, what he did, he lost the glass plate negatives. He had already had, I remember talking to him back then. I lived up in Scranton and actually had just come home from Penn State. The term was over, summer was coming. I had 2 wisdom teeth taken out, and there's the flood. So, we're all down there putting sandbags up. And anyway, I had visited him several times, and I asked him about that. He said the glass plates were in the garage, but he said just about everything else, including the prints that Jim Richards had made, were upstairs on the 2nd floor. Apparently the water hadn't gotten that high.
That's what I heard too.
The original negative, the glass plate negatives were all destroyed. And I think he probably had a couple of, because he must have had different signage and stuff. He had given me one time, and in fact, it's hanging up here somewhere, a plate from C62. One of the side plates that they would put on a sweeper. Then I got 132s when it came into Pittsburgh.
Steve Smith, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Okay.
Except you're right in the middle of the tracks, you're gonna get hit.
Yeah.
Actually on the platform here.
I'll just put on your flashers.
Is that the view behind your house?
No, this is actually up near Ron,
Oh,
Holmesburg Junction.
Where?
Holmesburg Junction, one of my favorite watching spots
Oh,
on the
okay.
corner. Used to be very busy. Now it's hardly nothing going on there, freight wise anyway. You guys ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay.
George, whatever you say.
All right. Well, welcome to April's Zoom meeting for East Penn. Hopefully everybody's doing well, on the track for getting shots and keeping out of harm's way.
We all meet the age requirement, that's for sure.
I'm still waiting. Hopefully everybody out there is.
Except you.
Everybody out there
Exceptions.
is either gotten their shot, one of their shots, or is get their shots, so we can all meet up at some point in the future. I think that's very important. What else did I have here? Yeah, I think the Zoom meetings are going pretty well so far. It's on our only alternative until all this is over with, but it should be pretty soon. Hopefully things will get better in the summertime. We're scheduled for our meet in October, 7th, 9th, and 8th. And hopefully, I don't know, the Agriplex will be open up, but their first opening is in May, June. So we'll see how things go through in the summertime, and we should be shored up for our meeting in the fall. Charlie, how are we doing money-wise?
Good. The cash account has $224.67. The checking account, $2,831.13. The money market, $18,928.12. And the PayPal account, $226.09, for a total cash and bank accounts of $22,210.01.
Great. And I guess, are we still selling calendars or?
Yes. I mailed 4 of them today, and Tom Lederer just sent an order for 2 calendars for me to ship out to Larry Loyko. That correct, Tom? Oh, I see Larry.
There's Larry there.
Yeah. Okay, so they both get shipped to Larry then, right?
That's
Or
correct. I'm out of this house on Thursday, so that way they're for Larry anyway, so go right to his house, but I couldn't do that on PayPal.
Okay.
Okay, as they were saying earlier, the meet is still on for October 7th, 8th, and 9th. Like I said, we'll see how things go in the summertime. A lot of other places, I think, are starting to open up. Anybody know of their earliest training meet?
There's one at Redinger's Kutztown coming up soon. There was one on March 27th, and the next one I think in June or early July. I can send a note to George.
Yeah.
And of course, they're having things in Texas.
Who?
Model Railroader, this issue had one listed for tomorrow. I forget where it was.
Yeah, I saw a swap meet down in North Carolina not too long ago. I guess they're all opened up.
Well, there's several northern states listed in that. It's the May issue of Model Railroader. Of course, the southern states, Florida's been having one every month.
Yeah.
All the whole, I think for probably almost the whole duration.
And a lot of the trolley museums are opening up now. I think the Washington Trolley Museum is open. And I think also Shoreline Museum is also opening up this weekend too.
IRM's opening up this month.
And PTM.
All right, great.
With limited attendance. You know,
Yeah, I see that they're selling tickets, and when the tickets are
a reservation, yeah.
out, then they're closing the doors or whatever. But I'm going to try to get out to. I was actually out in Pittsburgh, and I thought maybe they opened up that Washington Museum, but I was there the weekend before last week, so I missed it. But I'm trying to get out there again. Just want to see some trolleys running, instead of looking at them on films and whatnot.
If I can interject, we'll be opening on Easter, and we'll be open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And
Right.
instead of having these big, mass gatherings where people come down on a weekend, what they're going to try to do during the tours is to have themed tours. So you might have a Pittsburgh day when we're talking more about the Pittsburgh cars and all the cars that are out of Pittsburgh. You'll have a Philly day. You might have a work car day, and the visitors who avail themselves of coming down at that point will have that kind of extra special thing. So, because you don't want 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people coming down with the variants of virus that are still out there. God knows who's vaccinated yet. So,
right.
Cars, it's still appointment. The cars will still be half full. We are requiring masks still. So,
Good.
but we're opening.
That's great. Does anybody have any prototype news they want to share?
About Route 15 trolley, I see construction trailers near 38th and Girard as if it's the bridge over the Junction Railway that will be rebuilt, and not the bridge over the not the bridge in the 3200 block of Girard.
Well, they had a couple of cars up to, get through there. So as far as I know, the track's complete.
Track, yes, they haven't started work on the bridge other than removing the overhead wire.
Oh.
Yeah,
And
they
I
yanked
think-
the cars over with a truck.
But I think they're maybe going to work on both bridges.
All right, well, the looks of a construction lot are at 38th and Girard, and that's where the wire is missing.
Yeah.
I agree that when they shut the line down, they said that it was the bridge over CSX, which would imply 3200 block of Girard. I never thought of the Junction Railway as being a CSX line. I thought it was Conrail.
Well, it's getting pretty.
CSX might have got it from Conrail.
Bill, have you been snooping around Leechmere? How's the construction going there?
I have not been there.
Oh, okay.
I haven't been down there in 6 months.
Well, has anybody seen seen a picture? Have they actually finished fixing one of the cars yet this year or next year?
Yeah, I think Bill Monahan had one that just come out of the paint shop and it looks good.
He did?
Yeah, and
saw
Monahan's
it online.
pictures really show a lot of new metal going in on the cars.
Yeah, so they finished one?
What? Yeah, I
They
think
have
they did.
finished one?
I think they did.
I think so.
I'm not sure if it was 23, 32 or what, but yeah, Bill had taken a picture just when it came out of the paint shop.
No, I
Same
haven't seen
colors.
that.
So we're still looking at Philly colors. But it looked good. But I mean, if the bridges haven't even been started yet, then my guess is the more they find out, the easier it's going to be to put these things back together. Maybe the first two are like prototypes, and they got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And they got a budget for it too, probably.
Okay.
Any other prototype news? Go ahead. I think you're on mute.
I know they're working on 9100
Charles?
already,
There you
so.
go.
I don't know if people saw this on Facebook, but there is a trolley down in Paris, Texas for sale for $100. It's one of the Texas and Southern ones that was converted into a freight trailer. And it's 50-foot long. If you're in Texas, on Facebook, $100. Own your own trolley. I'm trying to find I think it was on Ahead of the Torch that had that. So I'll try and show a picture of it for those of you who are standing by with wallet ready.
Is that what you call cash and carry? Or?
Cash and carry, yeah, you're in a truck, but I think it's on Ahead of the Torch. Ahead of the Torch, okay.
Wow.
All I know is I was kind of like, no.
Did you see that yesterday?
Today or yesterday, yeah.
April the 1st, huh?
Did you buy
it?
Yeah, one wonders.
Well, this was genuine auction or genuine for sale, and now I can't find it. But oh God, who was his name? He wrote the thing on Texas Electric, Johnny.
Humiston.
No, the CER on it was Johnny. I want to say Johnny Walker, but that doesn't sound right.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. I know.
It's drinkable.
What?
Johnny Walker is drinkable.
Yeah,
Johnny Myers.
Yeah, Myers.
Yeah,
He
it
was
is.
the
Hear
one
that,
that he commented on it, so I'm gonna try and find it using that. But in all likelihood, I didn't have my computer here today. I was running off of this for a long time, and knowing my luck, I'm not going to be able to find the article fast. But talk amongst yourselves. I'll find it, post it, and.
You back teaching, Charles?
Not in person.
No.
And that's why this computer is kind of the past week has been kind of funny. Back in the old days when your battery died, you could replace it yourself, but it's glued into these new Macs. And so it's cheaper to actually give you a top part of the laptop computer. So that was the fun this past week. They had to order it. I was out without a computer for about 2 days. I'm working off of Lark's, and she does her work on the computer. And they got back to me, and the speaker doesn't work, and the arrow keys don't work. So it was just like,
oh God.
Back it goes. But I said to him, hey guys, remember when you took it away last week and held for 5 days and I didn't get all grading done? My students are starting to lose patience with me. So so I've got a non-functioning computer or one that isn't functioning as well as it could. But let me find this because I got quite excited, and you guys are right probably about the whole April Fools. I don't think this was, but yeah. So I'll mute myself, and you guys can talk about our thing.
So any other prototype news?
It's pretty
Quiet.
quiet out here. I will say this, there's a car running around and I can't think of its number out here, and it's painted several shades of blue, and it has on it the words library. So it like celebrates library. Some of you guys probably know. If you don't, that's one of the end destinations.
Yeah.
The only thing is I only see it on the beach view line, on the red line. So this is a blue painted car for a blue line. And of course, I don't really see any two-car trains out here. They're all single units, I guess because of COVID.
Oh, like I said, I was out in Pittsburgh. I was at South Hills Village, and I did peek over into the car barn, and I did see that one you're talking about.
Oh, okay, all right, pretty, isn't it?
Mask on it. Yeah, it's like I didn't know they had those out there. It's also a pretty cool spot out there not too far from the mall where you can watch the LRVs ride by. It's at the junction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't like you sitting on a track. And they when I worked for the company, they used to yell at me. My boss would send me out. She's doing a PowerPoint. She needs pictures. Here I am out there. Everybody should know who I am. You know, somebody give them a call, and there's the Pat Police. And then they had to call my boss, and she got annoyed at that. But now that I'm retired, I'm just like everybody else. You know, I can be arrested and fined and everything else. I'm a trespasser.
All right. Any modeling news?
I have. I've said before that I have quite a collection of supplies from deceased members that are available for the modelers in the club. It's getting a little bigger. My brother Patrick died recently, and so now there's a supply of extra power tools and other odds and ends. Also, I'm building more modules and going over my pile of lumber, and do have some lumber that I don't need and would be willing to trade or for lengths I do need. I've got 4-foot tall module legs. I know some of you like your modules higher from the floor. I'll be glad to trade them for the standard 3-foot legs before I cut them down.
How do we get in touch with you, Jim?
I'm in the directory, which of course hasn't been published in ages. If anyone wants to make a note, I am in the Philadelphia phone book. I'm not, and my email and phone number are not in the newsletter.
You say they're in the newsletter or not?
They're not. Let's see, is there a chat feature on this?
Yes, there is.
Yes, I think
All right,
there is. And I
I'll write
think, wasn't your contact information in the newsletter, not this past one, but the one before, where we put the little note about you having the legs available?
Yes, it was in there 1 month ago, but the ad was never repeated.
So the March issue?
Yes.
Probably the March issue, yes.
Okay. Any other modeling news?
John Kennedy again is back in the picture, and he's working on a 3D print version of the HO Shorefast car. He's doing it collaboratively with
The guy in France.
Volkmar Mayer in Paris. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw some activity from Wolfmeyer. A number of 3D bodies he's doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any news on the Bowser air car?
Air car. No, it's Kansas City car.
Kansas City, yeah.
It's happening. They hope to have them available by Christmas, according to George. Depends on their, when they can, George Huckabee, who's sort of the impresario of the thing. It's in the works. They have to, be in communication with their manufacturer in China.
Okay. Anybody else have anything before we, or anything they want to bring up? Jim?
Yeah, before we had this virus thing, we were having module tune-up sessions at my house and elsewhere. I've acquired a few more tools since then that could be useful when we want to get together, like, for instance, a compound miter saw. I found it very useful for cutting the frames for modules. And I've set up my drill press for mass producing the holes in the ends. But so when we do have those affairs, there's there
We're
are
not
more
there yet.
facilities.
You know, with everybody talking about, let's get back together again, don't forget some of your out-of-town members that have a hard time driving the turnpike. And I hope we have a few of these Zooms every year, so I can see all you guys.
Yeah, maybe
Not only the hard time, but the cost of the turnpike.
Well, yeah, but don't forget that benefits my pension. I was a transit worker.
maybe it's possible in the future that we can have
Get an
You're
easy
welcome, George.
pass.
Yeah.
you know, someone with a laptop can come to the when we finally get back to visiting people's houses, and we can have the Zoom in conjunction with the physical meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah,
Think-
it's nice.
think
You know,
club.
speaking about the turnpike, if I'm not mistaken, when they started to garner money from the turnpike, is it 2022 or 23, where they had given the legislature all this time to come up with a way to fund mass transit? Of course, they haven't done a doggone thing, but the money then from the turnpike starts to go away from the mass transit fund. So we're coming to another crisis, I think.
Got to vote. All right. Anybody else have anything else before we move on to the presentation?
Is anybody interested in old SEPTA timetables? 1970s about? Guess
A
not.
little bit,
Huh?
but
Say
a
again?
little bit, but probably the best thing is to bring them to the meet and try to sell them.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the catch is, well, yeah, that might work.
it's the
The
best
catch
way.
is they're in Idaho Falls.
They're not what?
They're in Idaho Falls where my friend has them.
Oh,
It probably costs more to ship them than it would he could sell them for.
I don't know. I'll ask him. I'll give him that as an offer.
A giveaway.
Yeah.
That might work. Good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah. no.
I have a lot of magazines piling up here. That'll be giveaways at the next meet.
I have a lot of magazines that I'm cutting up and throwing most of it away.
Yeah, well,
You know, I mean, you bought it for one article.
well, you scan it and then get rid of the paper.
Yeah.
somewhat similar, since I no longer have my brother Patrick, who wants my trolley modules in the late future.
We don't have to deal with that tonight, Jim.
No.
No, but someday I have to solve that question.
Someday you'll work on it.
You're not unique.
We all got a bunch of stuff.
Right, I'd just rather not wait until it's too late.
Yeah, but someday comes soon enough.
All right, since we have some people on the call here, before we give the podium to Adam, is everybody clear about how we upload the photos for next month's photo contest to the site? Everyone's clear how to do that?
Is anybody not clear? Who wants to do it?
Yeah.
It'll be in the newsletter.
I thought everybody was going to be emailing those to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you gotten any, Mike?
I'm sorry?
Have you gotten any from anybody?
No, not yet. No, we're not uploading them to the site. We're just emailing them.
Right. Now,
How many you can fit per email,
Yeah, that's the question. I guess I don't know how big people are sending them, and they might have to send them individually, or maybe like 2 or 3 at a time, so that the server doesn't get rejected.
Yep.
And bounce back.
On my end, I can take a
Wow.
file. It'll probably depend more on the sender's email server.
Right.
Able to receive 4, 5, 6, 8 megabyte files with no problem.
So what's your upper limit?
I'll have to check on that. I'm not sure, but I know I've got, like I said, like an 8 megabyte file. I mean, not that it gets in very fast, but certainly can get it. But once again, as it kind of said, these are going to be rendered in a PowerPoint presentation. So at some point, higher resolution's kind of lost because it's actually going to be limited to the resolution of the screen the person who's voting is watching on. You know, if you got an HD screen, you know, I mean, I'll certainly have it as high a resolution as you can fit in the PowerPoint reasonably, but I think if you got like a 6 or 8 megabyte file, it's probably going to get pared down a little bit for the presentation. What you don't want is something that's like 400 by 800. It's going to look pretty grainy. So you certainly want something that's bigger than that resolution wise.
I can send a reminder in a couple of weeks to everybody.
Yeah, that would be good. And you know, but yeah, it'd be nice to have the more the merrier. It'd be fun. I think we did a dry run the other week, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So people should enjoy it.
Okay. Thanks. Adams, it's all you now. Adam's doing the presentation. Take it over. Thanks.
Steve, are you saying you ready?
Yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
Okay. Let me share my screen.
Can you share, or do I need to give you permission?
Yeah, you have to.
Okay, I can't share my screen. Can you set that up?
Yeah, let me.
Probably we should all mute ourselves and turn off our video too.
Yeah, good idea, Rich.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good evening, everybody. I will talk a little bit about the Illinois terminal, how I got to this point, and some interesting things about it. I'm not an expert. I just recently became very interested in it. So if anybody has anything to add, you're welcome to, or to correct me. So the Illinois terminal was composed of an electric and diesel operation. I'm not going to talk about the diesel part, just the electric side of it, because there's so much in there. And okay, so this started out as a problem. I've been working on a module for the past couple months that is compatible with Larry Lloyd Coast models and HO scale. And so if you look over here, this track going to the right will be meeting up with Larry's track. And so this is a standalone module that I can operate as a loop. And I faced the problem of what to put here that will fit in the tight curve. So I was looking through all my books, and I came up on the Illinois terminal. And I discovered that in a few places, the IT had a station or a substation in a very tight spot. And that's what I ended up settling on. And I'll show you more pictures later on what happened. So first of all, I should acknowledge a few people that I reached out to get information for this presentation, as well as pictures. So Morning Sun Books gave me permission to use pictures from their books over here. I talked to Bob, the NOC, and he was very understanding that this would be a personal thing. And there's Illinois Terminal Fans Facebook group, Illinois Traction Society, and these guys right here, Rich, Andy, Ed, and Bruce, all gave me permission to use pictures of the models. And then Don's Rails photos has some pictures too. So unless otherwise mentioned, all the pictures of the Morning Sun. So first, a quick message. If you're thinking about showing off some thing that you've been working on, you don't need PowerPoint to do it. You could do this for free with an application called Slides. And if you have a Gmail account, it's stored in the cloud, and wherever you are, at work or at home or at a friend's house, you can open it up there and work on it. And you can download it as a standalone PowerPoint or other presentation. So let's start talking about the Illinois terminal. What's so great about it? It was an important connector passenger line for many towns in Illinois, as well as St. Louis. It's a 600-volt DC power line with some experimental AC. The AC was just a short-term thing, but otherwise the line was all DC. It had a wide variety of rolling stock. I'll show you some pictures of it. It has some architecturally distinct buildings that, because of their construction, they're still around today. And thanks to many photographers and historians, there's a lot of documentation around to help you with research and modeling. There are people still around who worked on the IT, and a lot of people have documented a lot of color photos and stuff. And the Illinois Traction Society continues to have meets. And personally, one of the station stops was my college town, Urbana-Champaign. So it's been an ongoing curiosity. So history in brief. At one time, it consisted of 550 miles of mostly single track interurban routes that had some pioneer dining and sleeper service. So some of the towns were far enough apart that they could have dining and sleeper cars. And it started out back in around 1900 when William McKinley, a developer, city utilities, and a U.S. senator, he had a small system, the Danville Packs in Northern, 1901, for moving coal and workers around Danville, the easternmost stop. And westward expansion occurred to form the Illinois Traction System, reaching St. Louis in 9 years. It was until 1930, it was the only railroad with the bridge to St. Louis over the Mississippi. Freight service became an important source of revenue and lasted until 1982. And I'll show you the railroad suffered just like any other railroad for passenger service after World War II. So the IT boosted its freight service, and it has some advantages compared to the other mainstream railroads. So for example, bypasses around large cities in Illinois were attractive to freight customers, And so that helped the IT be competitive with major railroads like the Wabash, the Illinois Central, and others. Yeah, the passenger service started declining in the 1930s, thanks to people driving all the time a lot. But it picked up during World War II due to a shortage of rubber and fuel. Online industries are developed to make supplies for the war. And people need to get to work in those industries. It became part of Illinois Power and Light Company, but in 1945 became publicly owned Illinois Terminal Railroad Company. And despite attempts to revive passenger service after the war, the last car ran in 1958, becoming the last trolley in all of Illinois. They beat the last trolley in Chicago by about almost a day. So here's a map. And then, I'm sorry, brought out by Norfolk and Western in 1982, and is now part of Norfolk Southern. So here's a map. So here's the capital of Illinois, Springfield, and the IT went east all the way to Danville, Illinois, near the border of Illinois. And it went, and then this is the main IT system. I'll show you the other part of it. And then it went first north as Peoria, and here's Decatur, there's Bloomington here, Mackinac Junction, and then on the bottom southwest we have St. Louis, and the suburbs of St. Louis were also served by the IT. The IT also had an upper part of it until around 1934. What they call the Chicago, Ottawa, and Peoria were the Illinois Valley Division. The goal was to connect Joliet to Chicago and Streator to Peoria. But unfortunately, that never happened because people just were not riding trolleys as much. And it was very complicated to get people from Chicago to Joliet. So there's something interesting you can find online. One of the guys on the IT fans Facebook group, he mapped the book of the IT using one resource was the George Vail maps. George Vail was an IT fan back in probably 7 years ago who walked the entire IT route and mapped everything down to a mailbox. So you could buy a book of these maps and know where exactly where the IT went. And Skip took all the information and made a map out of it that you can access online and blow it up and see where the tracks went. If you'd like to have a link to the map, contact me. So let's start talking about buildings. This is the former IT headquarters in Champaign, Illinois. It's still around today. It was built as part of the Illinois traction system in 1913. And this is the headquarters and passenger station. And Illinois Power and Light also had offices until 1985. So at the time this building was active, the IT went nearby, but there was also a trolley system in Champaign. There's a separate trolley system that I believe stopped right in front of the building. So there are two forms of transportation by electric lines in Champaign, trolleys and interurban. The IT interurban served the station until buses took over in 1936. And so the IT relocated its station to another part of the town. And this old building is part of the National Register of Historical Places. So here's some interesting architecture of the IT. Quite a few stations were called the McKinley style because they were built during the time of William McKinley. And they were masonry with terracotta roofs, and most are still existing. And because of the way they're built, they're really stable structures, very strong. A A lot of stations were made out of wood, but most of them have not survived. So here's the Deepview, Illinois. This station was part of the IT in Upper Illinois, the Illinois Family Division. And that station's still there. I just have a picture of a postcard. And here's Buffalo, Illinois, which is now used as a garage. Mackinac, Illinois, Mackinac Junction was a huge building. It's now used as a coffee shop, but it's been cosmetically restored. And then here's Girard, Illinois. Looks more like a house. And this station is still there as a private residence. So the interesting thing is the station style is from a dream of Mr. Chubbuck, the general manager of IT properties. This distinctive red French tile, which is at the bottom of the station here and there, was manufactured in Chicago by Ludo Fishy. So Harristown, Illinois has a similar station, big station. And currently it has a former IT car in front of it. This station was an antique store for a number of years. And I believe the car was part of the antique store, I'm not sure. The car is where the tracks used to run. And now the station is owned by a private resident, a private person who's been converting it to his own house. He's still maintaining the style of the station. And the owner of the house would like to get rid of the passenger car. So if you know anybody interested, let him know. So one interesting feature about the IT was the elevator in the subway, St. Louis. So this map shows the route of the IT, and upper going down to the right, that's the line of the IT that comes from Springfield. The upper IT line goes to Granite City and Elton, Illinois. It's a very interesting structure because part of it is elevated and part of it is at ground level. And then at the bottom, it goes underground into the St. Louis station. So let's look at the elevator part, which goes over Venice, Illinois, which is right here. And that was what the elevator looked like heading getting ready to cross the Mississippi. This was a wooden structure dating back to 1910. So it lasted around 80 years until there was a fire on the bridge. And the fire basically warped the track and basically created a hole in the bridge. And they started dismantling it. So it was pretty much gone within about 10 years, 10, 15 years. So today you can see portions of it. The portions of the IT line over as you cross the Mississippi. We're on the St. Louis side, and you can see the IT structure coming from St. Louis on the right. And here's the bridge, the McKinley Bridge over St. Louis, over the Mississippi. And it was a 3-span bridge. And here's the IT route that came up in this curve in the bottom left. And here's Venice, Illinois. So this curve here is what you see in the picture in the top. So the going on to one of the stations in St. Louis is the Broadway station. So that goes over Broadway here in Upper St. Louis. And here is a PCC over Broadway, and that's just one of the St. Louis public transportation. So St. Louis cars right here, about to undergo the IT car. And today you can see in the bottom right, you can see the infrastructure is still there, going from Broadway to the right, on the right, and all the way down, going downhill to get ready to go back up over the Mississippi. And right now, this part is a bike trail. They're still using it for recreation. So the approach to the subway, which if you look at the map here, where the arrow is pointing, where the arrow is pointing, the trolleys went downhill into the subway. And here you see one of the IT streamliners coming out of the subway. And at the bottom, you see a PCC in the subway, in the open part of the subway. Behind the PCC, the tracks went under the St. Louis station. So here's the St. Louis station, which is still around today. Back in the day, the St. Louis station had this big sign in front of it, big neon sign showing the map of the IT. And here's what it looked like back in the day. It used to say Illinois Terminal System right here. And today it's, you see if you look at the station, and back in the day, there was a big building behind the station right here. Today that building is gone, but the station itself is still there, inhabited by a newspaper company. So the another interesting feature about the IT were the suburban cars. The suburban cars went to Granite City, which is northeast of St. Louis. So this was a local service between St. Louis and Granite City. There was another town called Alton, Illinois, which had a little different arrangement, but I'm not going to go into that. But these cars went between St. Louis and Granite City. The story I heard is that, especially for the PCCs, the wheel diameters were too small for PCCs to go on the main line, so they stayed in local service. So most cars on going to Granite City were built in 1917, 1924. The last order of PCCs were bought in 1949 to modernize the service. Unfortunately, it only lasted about 9 years. So the IT had 8 double-ended PCCs from St. Louis Car Company and 4 center door also from St. Louis Car Company. So you see the center doors are here on the right. And there were a few other cars that got involved as well, especially older cars. So here's some pictures of the St. Louis suburban cars. So here's downtown Granite City in upper left with one of the center doors and the PCC. And the upper right shows a PCC in Illinois after crossing the Mississippi. And here's on the bottom left is a PCC on the elevated, probably over Broadway, going towards St. Louis. And the bottom right shows a PCC in the subway. So another interesting thing about the IT were the fact that it has some streamliners, much like the North Shore and the Zephyrus. So the IT only had a few of them. And so there were 2 3-car and 1 2-car sets provided by St. Louis Car Company in 1938. The IT was counting on this to revive passenger service. And they were common on the route between Peoria and St. Louis. They did have some issues in Peoria. They couldn't fit into some tunnel or something. So, but they were able to still get to Peoria. And unfortunately, it was not successful running them because people were driving more and more, and they were unfortunately prone to mechanical issues. The parlor car, which is the last car on the train, was frequently left off because of low passengers and mechanical issues. In many cases, you will see the first car, the streamlined first car, running by itself, and that because they didn't have enough passengers. And unfortunately, after 6 years, they were put in storage and eventually scrapped. and none of them are preserved today. Uh, they sat in the junkyards for many years. There's a picture of them from the 1970s that showed them still sitting in a junkyard in St. Louis. So some more interesting passenger cars at the IT. So most of these cars represent what we think of as the IT, with the curved front windows. So in many ways they were similar, but they all came from different companies. So 276 was part of an order, a big order of cars from St. Louis Car Company in 1913. 202 came from McGuire Cummings, 1910. 404 came from the St. Louis Car Company. This was originally built for the Illinois Valley Division in Northern Illinois. So that became part of the main IT after 1934. And the bottom right shows 234 came from the Danville Car Company in Danville, Illinois in 1911. So most of these cars were still running when the IT shut down. And so they were around a long time. So some more interesting cars here. 240 came from American Car Foundry in 1908. And this is a sleeper car with every window having an arch. And then 234 came from Danville Car Company. And this is a parlor observation. And this car is now preserved at Illinois Railway Museum in the original car of orange. It was painted blue at one point, but the museum returned it to the orange color. And on the bottom, you see the Illinois Railway Museum has a bunch of cars, and they can put them all together in a very typical IT long distance train. So another interesting feature are the freight motors. We have the upper left, we have Class A from the Danville Car Company. They had the both front and back sloped surfaces. And the upper right, you have the Class B. And notice all the different colors. I don't know how to explain the green color, but the original color was orange, and then a lot of them are repainted blue or green or some other color. So the Class B was from 1907, and they lasted almost until the IT was shut down. When passenger service ended. Class C at the bottom left was from Decatur shops in 1914, 1926. And then Class D in the bottom right also came from Decatur shop in 1940, 1942. So the Class D lasted until the IT ended passenger service. So the IT had a number of cars that were named. So in the upper left, there is a car called the Champagne, one of the early cars. And then the upper right, you have number 510 was named Monticello with the motorized trailer. The bottom left, 512 is a Cerro Gordo trailer. And Cerro Gordo is one of the towns in Illinois. And the bottom right is 258 is named Indiana. And this is one of McKinley's private cars. So some other interesting things about the IT. The upper left, they had a small number of battery electrics, battery diesels. I don't know enough about them, but apparently they could run without electric wire for a while. My understanding is the battery was removed at one point, so they were diesel electrics. The upper right, there was a rail bus. I think there was more than one. on what they call the Grafton line. Grafton is a town in Illinois that was part of the IT while the IT was running Steam. And then after Steam ended, I believe because of the number of passengers and the expense of setting up electric wires, they opted for rail buses. The bottom left is a demotored freight motor from that was ex-Cincinnati to Lake Erie. The bottom right are some Class B's converted to snowplows. I'm not sure how they ran. I don't know if they were pushed or maybe under diesel power. So another interesting thing about the IT was that they had a number of New York City subway cars during the war. So here's a picture of a Class B pulling a bunch of New York City cars to transport commuters to and from the San German Ordnance Plant near Heliopolis during World War II. And the Class B was painted red, white, and blue. So let's start talking about models. Yeah, this goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning. What I decided to do was I use this picture as a guide. This is a picture of Beeman's, Illinois station substation on the IT. So the car is coming from Bloomington. I'm sorry, Springfield. I think it's Bloomington. And it's about to head towards Springfield. So that it makes a pretty sharp curve there around a substation. And there are quite a few pictures of the station that I can use for a guide. So I decided to make a basic model of the station to fit in the spot. And these are Walther's panels that you can glue together in any configuration. So I'm still working on that. So let's talk about a few IT model cars. Rich Ellman, you probably read in a couple newsletters ago that his first car was an IT PCC 456. And this is a brass model, probably by Fairfield. It was painted and lettered by Norman Hauser, East Penn member, and it was remodeled with Bowser by the help of Jack Spedding. And here's a picture of the same car of 456 on its last run on June 21, 1958. The last trolley to run in Illinois. So here are some IT center doors that you can buy today, 3D printed by West Coast Traction Supply. So these represent the center doors that were going between Granite City and St. Louis. So you have to paint them yourself and motor them and everything. And here's a picture of some center doors. Some more models here. Andy Breaker is a very active modeler from Wisconsin who does a lot of IT models and North Shore models. So he's done a bunch of box cars that you could buy from Libel and use Circus C details. And upper right, he painted his own version of a Senator car in orange. And the bottom are a couple of Class D's that were made in brass by NJ Custom. And here's some more models of HO models. You have IT 273 combined, 264 combined, and a Class B. And these are all GHB International brass models. And then here's some old scale cars. by Ed Halstead, an ill-skilled model in Illinois, and he's also an East Penn member. So here's our number 273 brass model, painted and finished by Jan Pantarrant. And then there's also a PCC that's made by St. Peter's Bertram Company. That's a plastic model. And on the right, you have one of the streamliners by Bronsky Miller Epoxy model, painted and finished by Ed Miller of Illinois. This is not the same Ed Miller that many of us know through East Penn. So here's some more old scale colors. For 4 Kidder brass model, 514 GHB brass model, and that's a parallel observation. And here's the observation end. And then here's some more old scale colors that were painted by Larry Counts-Brook. He passed away recently, but he was very talented in detailing models. So here's 277. And there's 101, a 10 kilo brass import. And there's a bunch of models plus a Class B on someone's layout. So let's talk about the IT today. What's still around from the IT? And one good thing about that, it's great about being stuck at home and so forth, is that you can go online and look at street maps, street views in Google, and see what's still around if you know where to look. So here's on the left is the IT in 1950s. And you can see where the streamliner is going, where the track used to be. And here's the same church today, the streamliner in here on the right. And I wonder how many people still remember the trolley today. Here's the IT 1950s in Gillespie, Illinois. This was the station right here on the right of the streamliner. That's where the station was. You can see the IT sign right here. Here's what it looks like today. The building is still there. The IT sign is gone. And the place is now a hair salon. So here's a picture of a Class C going through Staunton, Illinois, next to a very interesting building. And today, it's a street today, but the building's still there. So here in a picture of 1950s, it shows a number of tracks that the IT used to cross. The IT this is the IT facing towards Springfield. So the IT is the car has left Springfield and is heading up to go to I believe Peoria. And today, and then it crossed the two tracks in the middle. It crossed the Illinois Central tracks, and the track going across the is a Wabash track. So today, you can see 2 of the tracks are still remain. The IT came up on the left here, and it crossed the 2 tracks at Illinois Central. Now it's down to 1 track. And the Wabash track is still there from the right to left, now owned by Norfolk Southern. So this is Illinois, Illinois. Here's a station, substation on the right. And today, the building is still there, but heavily modified. The electrical pole is still there, same old pole. That pole was installed in 1920s. Here's Bonneville, Illinois. Here's a nice station, substation. And today, the station's still there next to a farm business. And the IT tracks are part of a parking lot. So this is Monticello, Illinois, which today is home to the Monticello Railway Museum. And here's the passenger station, which was the subject of a lot of pictures back in the day. And the IT curved around the station. Today, and unfortunately, after the IT ended service here around 1956, the station was torn down in the 1960s. And it's been a parking lot since the 1960s. A very unfortunate fate for the station. So on the left shows the IT crossing a highway west of Illiopolis, Illinois. The IT originally had some tracks north of this. But when they built the highway, they gave the IT the bridge back in the 1950s, so the IT could cross the highway. And the IT also shared the bridge with the Wabash. And today the bridge is still there. It's a pretty young bridge, around 7 years old. And freight trains use the bridge today. So this shows a picture of, on the left, the IT crossing Lake Decatur on its way to Decatur from Springfield. I'm sorry, from Champaign. And today, the piers are still there. So here, the IT went through a tunnel south of Warden, Illinois. And it also shared, even back in 1950s, the IT had to share the tunnel with a dirt road for cars. And today, the tunnel is still there. The cars have a paved road, while the IT route is a paved path, is a bike path. Going all the way to St. Louis. So this shows the IT has just come out of the St. Louis subway. And it's about to head towards the Mississippi. And today, this is approximately where the picture was taken. I might have the wrong block, I'm not sure. But then this is north of St. Louis. And you can see there's a radio tower in the back of the picture, in both pictures, in the back. And then the smokestack in the 1950s picture appears to be the same smokestack on this building on the right. So this area of St. Louis is practically torn down, and parts of St. Louis are being redeveloped. So at some point, this might all be redeveloped. So what kind of equipment is still around for the IT? Two of the PCCs are at the Ohio Railway Museum and the Connecticut Trolley Museum. And they were both known to Shaker Heights Rapid Transit in the 1980s. Monticello Railway Museum has a diesel switcher. The Illinois Railway Museum has a large number of pieces, ranging from 1906 to 1953. The National Museum of Transportation, St. Louis, has a number of cars plus one of the rail buses. And then there are some others saved that I don't know where, but there are at least a couple of diesels saved. And some of them, in recent years, some of those diesels have been saved from the scrapper and trucked to museums. So here's some useful references to look for more pictures and information. The two books are wonderful books with all color pictures. The Traction Society is still active. There are a lot of pictures on New Days Rail Pics. And Don's Depot has a bunch of pictures too. And the Central Electric Rail Fan Association. And your fellow modelers and historians. That's all I have.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks,
job,
Adam.
Adam. Very good.
Thanks,
Very
Adam.
nicely
Good job.
done. Very nicely done.
That was very interesting.
Thank you, Adam.
Very nice.
Yeah,
I
thank
really
Good
like
job,
the
Adam.
then and now stuff.
Great job,
Yeah,
man.
fascinating.
There was a
I do have
question on the,
I have a question to Russ Jackson. You published on the chat, one of the places that PCCs had 2 gauges. What do you mean by that?
Well, I know of only 2 places that you had PCCs in sight of each other on 2 different gauges. One, of course, was Los Angeles, and the other was St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
because St. Louis PCCs were not standard gauge.
Correct.
Russ, you had said something a while back about Red Arrow had considered those PCCs.
Yeah, the rail fans talked it up at the time. What I'm not an expert on Red Arrow. You know, I got a lot of other things in my life, but they had reached a point. They took off Westchester, but the area was building so much that they were still trying to get rid of the old cars. And I think an argument can be made that the Ardmore line closure was a way of solving the rolling stock problem.
Right.
I took a lot of 8mm movies. There used to be a regular evening rush hour service with 2-car trains of St. Louis out as far as the end of double track, pretty much, that ran in every rush hour. They ran 2-car trains and then the media cars in between them. So at that point, traffic was very heavy.
Oh, you mean the Springfield cars? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
To add to that, the Catholic high schools at Lansdowne Avenue had just opened.
That's right. And you had a lot of school cars used, and they were trying to get rid of anything that took 2 men.
Yeah,
So the rail fans talked up the idea of instead of closing down Ardmore, get the Illinois terminal cars.
Okay.
You have to re-gauge them, obviously, but that could be done. And Red Arrow being Red Arrow, and I have my own opinions. Having worked with Red Arrow, you'll find that I'm not a lover of how Red Arrow is managed, because I had to deal with them. If you think about it, when you see the film to Westchester, and they had bought the 80 cars and then the Brilliners and then the St. Louis to run basically to run Westchester. And when you look at the properties, you say to yourself, why in heaven's name were they buying cars that didn't have track brakes? I mean, the Cincinnati and Lake Erie and the Indiana Railroad had realized, and Buffalo and Erie had already realized that it was crazy to be running through more and more grade crossings and not having any track brakes. But Red Arrow didn't even want track brakes on their Kawasaki cars. I had to get Ed Tennyson, who was working in Harrisburg in transportation. I had to get Ed Tennyson to tell Red Arrow, you're going to get track breaks or you're not going to get any state money. And so there was a big change order on the contract to now change the specifications and put track brakes on the Red Arrow cars. So somehow that was why they could have got the PCCs, but they knew the track brakes wore out the track. I don't try to make sense of a lot of things that Red Arrow believed. Their Kawasaki cars had to have hand-operated, hand-cranked roller signs because they had bought buses which had General Motors had stopped using Hunter car sign for the signs. The Hunter car sign was right there in Queens. I used to go by it on the bus going to high school. And that was Hunter car sign. They built quality stuff. And eventually General Motors got tired of paying good money for signs, and they put together real crappy drives to run electric roller curtain signs on their buses, and they were a disaster. So when I bought the Kawasaki cars, they told me, we don't want any electric signs on the Kawasaki's. You got to give us hand crank signs, which they got. So on all night, I won't do that. But yes, it would have made sense to have gotten the Illinois terminal cars. And you will also notice that Red Arrow doesn't like resilient wheels either. That's why the Kawasaki's have solid wheels, because Red Arrow doesn't believe in resilient wheels. It goes on and on. So anyway, the PCCs, the idea of the PCCs was to save Ardmore, but it never did happen, and Ardmore disappeared. Sorry about that. I could go on so long on all, put you all to sleep.
Rich Allman had a question on the chat. How were the streamlined single-end trains turned in St. Louis?
There was a Y there.
Yes, two of the pictures did show the curved track of the backward Y.
Yeah. Well, they were like in urban cars generally, they were designed to go around fairly sharp curves. So you could,
but that Y was so sharp that they couldn't go around it coupled. That is, the streamlined train could not go around it coupled.
But that's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a minor headache with the streamlined train, that every time it arrived at St. Louis, someone had to uncouple each car and take them around, turn them one by one.
Well, yeah, well, I don't think anybody is ever going to say that car purchase was the smartest thing in the world. And there was a good article all about that in Shoreline magazine about how those cars were a mess from day one because the people buying them had no idea what they were doing.
There was also
they couldn't get into Peoria.
Yes.
To the vertical curvatures, which was unbelievably stupid. So then you had to have a shuttle car going across the river to get into Peoria. It's like, what are you guys doing?
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
Hey, on the electric motors, I see 3 trolley poles on a bunch of them. Did the center trolley pole, was that reversible to run from either direction?
On the really big locomotives, you ran with 2 poles up just because of the high currents you had to carry.
Well, I understand running with 2 poles, but would that mean you'd only run in one direction because that you only have 2 poles on one end and 1 pole on the other end?
I've not seen enough pictures to have, I'm not an expert on IT and never did see it. So all I know is what I've seen in pictures, so I can't really say.
Well, I think one of the pictures showed the front pole turned backwards, so there were 3 poles on the wire.
Yeah, it's a strange way to do it.
Yeah, see, wasn't that arrangement something like 2 of the poles had shoes and then you reverse it, but then one of the pole had a wheel so you could back pole? When you did switching or so, I think that was maybe how they worked.
Yeah, it would make sense. You'd have
Yeah.
to look through the pictures to see if that's what they did, if one of them had a wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Springfield was a stub end station. I don't remember any turnaround tracks, but a lot of tracks went into Springfield. So I think the two poles helped to get the cars in and out.
Oh, but
Could
we
be.
mean that the large four truck electric engines had 3 poles, 2 on one end and 1 on the other.
Okay, yeah, I don't know why.
Who knows?
Hey, guys, speaking of the Illinois terminal, if you went to the meet in in Indianapolis back in the late 80s and early 90s, Dr. Howard Blackburn had 16 millimeter films of the Illinois terminal, and they were very, very good. I have seen some of his footage on some of the commercially available movies, either tapes or CDs. But I tell you, I can still remember seeing those, and they were of professional quality. Unfortunately, Dr. Blackburn is dead now. He passed away about 15 years ago, if I recall.
Okay, thank you. I'll look it up.
I have a question. I noticed that a lot of the photographs were, let's say, post 1930s, and it looked like those cars that were built back in the 20s and so forth that were shown. I wonder whether they had arch windows over the lower windows, and then they covered them up.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Even those center door cars that were running at the very end had the upper windows plated.
Well, that's
just
what
like Red Arrow.
Yeah, like Red Arrow did.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Made them look more modern, I guess.
I don't think, though, that they covered the upper windows of the sleeping cars.
No.
They were very railroad minded, which was good at one time, not so good at a later time. But even the PCC cars, you had a motorman, and then right behind him, you had the conductor collecting the fares on PCCs. Can you believe that? They
I had a question on some of the standard stations that were shown. It looked as though they had a substation, a passenger station, and a freight station all in one.
Yeah. Any of the ones that had all the grommets coming out of the side of the building would probably have been a sub.
That's interesting.
Yeah, some of the smaller stations also have freight on the side too. And you have to find pictures that will show that the freight side might have a ramp for loading onto a truck.
Did you see any plans of those stations while you were looking for any photos?
You say it again, please.
What could be a good scratch build?
Are you asking to be good to scratch built?
Yeah, a good model of scratch build, something like that.
Yeah, it could be fun. Yeah.
You know that's where Steve Smith's going to end up.
I'm waiting to see Steve's articulated PCCs yet.
We all have projects in there for Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got enough film projects to keep me busy.
Yeah, I believe you could find a lot of the station plans in the IT Society publications. I don't see any online.
Yeah, I've IT interests me, but I've got enough on my plate. Never have looked into it enough to see just how well it was run. They had a lot of substations. If you're going to build a trolley line 150 miles long, and running on 600 volts and having umpteen substations has some issues in terms of power loss. And whether they had converted all the substations to be automatic or not, it would be a big question, so that they weren't wasting all those kilowatt hours just running machinery 24 hours a day.
Or paying someone to live in the building.
Yeah, well, that's right. And they may have lived upstairs from the station, who knows?
Yeah, I think I read that at least one of the stations, they powered it down when the next train was not due for several hours. And then when the train was expected, they powered it back up to full voltage.
Yeah, but if you got somebody doing that, you got to pay him.
He had 3 jobs. He was a freight guy, he was a passenger guy, and a station guy.
Yeah, unless he did other work, maybe he swept the floors or kept the station clean. I don't know. But I
Sold
doubt it.
tickets.
I doubt it.
Weighed bags, everything.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah.
As I recall, reading up on various interurban and street railway properties, most substations were about 10 miles apart, because that was the length or the distance that DC power could be sent without having too much line loss. And that was true of many of the interurban and street railway properties that I have read about.
Yeah, you sort of had a choice. You could either hang a lot of copper wire up there as feeder cable to spread the substations out a little more, or you could just bite the bullet and put the substations, with it, sort of an economic analysis as which way you wanted to go. The Westchester trolley was 19 miles, and you had power at 69th Street. And you had a substation in the old powerhouse out at Ridley Creek. And then there was one other substation halfway between there and Westchester. So
Milltown.
yeah, so you had basically 2 intermediate subs. I don't think they had a sub in Westchester, but but that's it. The numbers are similar to what you're saying as to how many miles you can go.
Was something at Lanark, was that the trolley companies?
Since you were feeding Ardmore, you probably you may have had a sub there. I've forgotten. You might have had a sub at Lanark because you're also feeding Ardmore, and that's the heavy traffic portion of the line between Terminal and Westgate Hills, that augmented service. So you would need to have some power up that way at the top of the hill.
Yeah, I remember the electrical apparatus. I just don't know who owned and used it.
Yeah, never looked closely at that.
How many volts was the Ardmore line? Westchester line. The Westchester line, how many volts was it?
600.
It's all 600. Yeah.
Let's see, on Media
Ardmore was
Westchester.
short. That was
you
only
have-
3 miles from Lanark.
Excuse?
Ardmore was short.
What was it? Question? What?
No, not a question. Never mind.
Someone was commenting that the Ardmore line wasn't all that long once it left Westchester Pike.
No, I think the map I've got that I used for my video, I think the line was only like 5 miles long from terminal to terminal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Sharon Hill isn't a whole lot longer than that.
There's substations at Aronimink and Beatty Road on the Media line, and at Clifton Heights on the Sharon Hill line.
Yeah, well, you had school troopers, you had 2-car trains of school troopers out there, so it's always a choice of whether you want to hang a lot of feeder cable or put in a substation. It's economics. But running at 600 volts makes sense if you have to do a lot of running on a city line to get into a city and share it with streetcars, because then you're stuck with either running off 600 or 1200, which makes Sacramento Northern did it that way. It was partly 1200 and partly 600. So that was done. And you had the same thing on Pacific Electric, the San Bernardino line out to San Bernardino was 1200. But at some point along the line, as you got in towards LA, around Pasadena, somewhere in there, changed over to 600. It's an interesting subject to look at what they did and didn't do.
Russ, are you
And
talking?
at least they knew what they were doing, because those people do what they were doing. If you ride the St. Louis light rail from the airport terminal all the way across St. Louis and on into Illinois, that's a 40-mile run. And it was done at 600 volts because that's what San Diego is. Think about it. It's great for the guy who sells substations.
Russ, when you're talking 600 and 1200 volts, is that feeder cable or is that on the wire that you're running off of?
Oh, the wire.
On the wire.
Yeah, the wire.
So what did you have to do inside of the car? If you're the operator, did you have a switch where you would throw it from 600 to 1200, or?
Well, usually you had a contactor to make change the connections. You can't do that by hand.
You become the conductor.
No, it was always, it gets complicated because things like the air compressor has to be able to run at both voltages, for example.
Yes.
So there's a fair amount of complication goes with that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I have read on some of the lines that had 1200 and then down to 600 when they went through a city, that the cars were wired for 1200 volts. And when they were under a 600 volt wire, they just ran at half speed.
Well, if you've got a 60-mile-an-hour car, you probably don't need to go much over 30 through the city anyway.
I think you're describing what the South Shore did when they were at an alternating current line.
Well, that's another complication entirely, but
yeah, they ran on low.
Yeah, if you're an interurban car and you're good for 60 miles an hour, it's perfectly satisfactory to be limited to 30 in the city.
Yeah.
No, yes. Operationally, it's fine.
Yeah, South Shore, when it was an alternating current line, ran at low voltage AC in South Chicago and in South Bend.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of that. The Baltimore and Washington was AC originally also.
Oh, boy.
And they not only changed voltage, they changed the conduit.
But not at the same place.
Probably.
Yeah, they
probably did. They would have stayed on the AC wire as long as they could. When they had to go on to the conduit, then you had to switch it over to run on 600 DC.
Well,
it's not a problem because AC traction motors love DC.
Yeah.
They'll run absolutely marvelous on DC. If you put a rectifier on GG1 to run all those GG1 motors on DC, that would be an unbelievable locomotive in what it could do. You could spin the wheels at 50 miles an hour. AC motors are very complicated machines, as Steve knows. And nobody builds them anymore.
WB&A was even worse in their AC days because they had to use double overhead in the District of Columbia. and triple overhead in Annapolis.
Yep. Well, I know about Annapolis. There's no street running in Annapolis.
There was.
To the terminal you came off the trestle. I don't think you ran much in the
Oh,
street.
that's the Annapolis short line.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm talking about the Washington Boulevard in Annapolis. The Annapolis short line is the one with the trestle.
Right.
The WB&A was the competitor that later merged.
Yeah, that ran cross country because it was originally a steam railroad and it connected with the Baltimore and Ohio.
Yeah.
And then it was electrified, and it had a I forget the name of the location, but you had when the Pennsylvania electrified the Washington line, then you had the two catenaries intersecting, crossing each other. And there are pictures of that, of what a complex thing that was, where you had the 11 kV on the Pennsy, and whatever that was on the short, well, the WB&A line, the original
600.
line. Yeah.
Yeah, the WB&A was the senior line at that junction.
Yes. It was a very early railroad.
Yeah.
It was a very early railroad. It carried people during the Civil War.
Yeah, there was a Civil War hospital along the line.
Well, yeah, it was an army base right there that it served right up until it was still intact into the army base, right into the 50s.
Yeah.
I guess it's all gone now.
That railroad was how they got the troops, the Yankee troops, from Baltimore to Washington. They took it by boat to Annapolis.
Yeah.
Moved west to the main, to the B&O, and transferred the troops, and it saved them from my side, if you will, out of the Virginia, from taking Washington, which would have ended the war and given the Confederacy independence. I mean, that's one hell of an important railroad.
Also saved the troops from having to march through Baltimore.
No, they did. They went. The Massachusetts regiment came down to the Pennsylvania, what became the Pennsylvania Railroad Station, and they had horses to draw the coaches because Baltimore wouldn't allow steam down Pratt Street. And the upshot, according to a big plaque near the B&O station at Camden, they decided to march the troops, and that was a riot, and a lot of people died.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Anyway.
Guys, I'm going to sign out. Adam, thank you for a great program.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks,
I'm
Adam.
right behind you, Rich. Adam, same thing. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bill Crawford, great seeing you, man. We have to get together when I get to Boston.
Great job, man.
Please come to Boston in the springtime.
Well, yeah.
Russ, you might know this. You mentioned that the Pennsy cross, which was a very high voltage AC, the Pennsy crossed the DC line. And I know they did that in Willow Grove, right? With the Reading and PTC.
Yep.
Yes.
And also over on 33rd or somewhere out that way.
Route
Did they have-
33.
was that whole crossing area then de-energized and somebody had to either flip a switch for the trolley voltage or for the Reading Pennsy voltage?
My guess would be that the earlier line, they may have made the whole thing a dead section.
Yeah.
From
That'd be
photographs, the PTC crossings and the Schuylkill Valley or Reading Transit and Light crossings had the AC have a short dead section.
Yeah.
The DC was continuous to prevent the car.
All right.
There were four there were 4 of those in the Philadelphia area. Route 33 in the 3200 block of 22nd Street crossing the Reading. As you mentioned, Old York Road in Willow Grove, Route 55 crossing the Reading, and 2 crossings in Norristown at DeKalb Street and at Main Street. Main Street was single track crossing the Reading. Let's see, DeKalb Street was single track again crossing the Pensy.
You know, on the cover of Mike Szilagyi's book, there's a picture of one of those crossings.
Yes, that's DeKalb Street crossing the Pensy.
Right, yeah.
I remember
And that
seeing pictures
surprises
of
me since that's earlier than the WB&A crossing.
I remember pictures of that
Yet it's
crossing in
simpler.
Odenton.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The crossing in Odenton actually had a piece that spun.
Yes, 3
bottom of
pieces
it.
that spun.
Yeah. That
It
was
was single track crossing double.
right.
And so there were 3 spinning pieces for the single track WB&A to cross the Pensy.
Yep.
The WB&A wire was lower than the Pensy wire.
Right. And I guess some kind of control house can control that spinning mechanism.
Yeah.
Well, part of
there
the
was a
issue there, part of the problem there was that the trolley line ran wheels probably at that time. And that doesn't work too well unless you have a section that you rotate, because otherwise, if you just had the wires cross, the wheel is going to bounce. If you have 2 pantographs, you don't have to worry about that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just
But
need a
the 4
plate. You just need a
crossings,
plate. You just need a plate up there to tie the wires to, and the pans will run through it if yep.
But
But
if
if
you
you
had a
got a
couple of,
wheel, it gets
He has
more
it.
complicated.
That's the
you had
picture
a
right
couple of
there.
Reading cars, and they had the bus bars. So you want a Reading car to run through that, not bring the AC into that section. But
Can you see the
Oh, yeah,
picture
it's
that John
always-
has up?
But the
John-
railroad can coast through, but the last thing you want is to have a streetcar stuck on the crossing.
oh, right. But wouldn't some of the cars in the back, if they were all like sort of connected, go through the pan? And I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how they keep the power out.
The engineman is instructed to back off on the power when you go through something like that.
no,
I mean,
but
up on the New Haven, you've got a section of railroad on the New Haven where there is no wire on the bridge.
on more than one drawbridge.
Yeah, and that's still that way today. You just raise the wire on either side and the trains just, but you don't go into that in full power, obviously.
Yeah.
Because you're
I
going
don't
to
know
lose
how
you're
this
going to lose the wire. You're going to lose the wire as the wire goes up, and then you're going to pick up the wire on the other end of the bridge. So it's not a good idea to be drawing a lot of power.
Didn't they have a problem with GG1s with that? Because some of the pantographs wouldn't lock. So they went into full.
Not to my knowledge. I don't know.
Yeah. I read something about that. They had some of the pantographs didn't lock when they went through those open sections. So it went straight up.
And
well, that could be if nobody thought about that, because the PRR didn't have anything like that. So if you took a PRR engine up there, all bets are off if you hadn't thought about that.
yeah, they had to put Amtrak had to put some sort of stop on the GG1 pantograph so it wouldn't go up too high.
Well, theoretically, the engineman could lower the pan.
Yeah.
But then you're counting on him to remember.
Yes.
Guys, I don't know if this is showing up on your screen. This is a piece of artwork my brother bought for me. This is.
I can see.
Can you see that well?
Yeah.
Or
the WB&A crossing is that the Pensy, I think.
yes.
Yep.
And there's the signal tower.
Yeah. And quite a bit of structure supporting the wire there, I-beams and.
Well, it's supporting the 3 revolving sections of wire.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you look carefully, the WB&A wire is lower than the catenary.
Yeah, which might also be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
Gentlemen,
still,
I'm gonna have to leave. Adam, that was a very good presentation and also one of my favorite interurban lines. Thanks.
Good
thank
night.
you. And John, thank you.
Good night, John. Yes, electric stuff gets interesting at times.
Yeah, you,
You
I
only have-
mentioned WB&A's triple overhead. Oh, somebody else in here.
Mike Zalagi.
Thank you.
Mike's got it.
Yeah, this is DeKalb Street, Reading Transit and Light crossing the Pennsylvania Railroad, DeKalb Street, Norristown.
Look at the insulators. That tells you everything.
Yeah.
That crossing is Deadsville for AC.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, the Pennsy did not use bus bars.
Yeah, that's a great photo.
Here's the swing bridge over WB&A, or the swing wire.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
that
it is.
shows it lined
Yeah,
up
that's
for
it.
the Pennsy.
Right.
Yep. That's it.
My guess is that since WB&A was senior at that crossing, they did the designing. Because you notice the Norristown apparatus was simpler.
Well, the PRR had to do what they had to do, and I don't think there was much argument.
Yeah.
They're first. They're there first. And,
No, PRR was there second.
Yeah, that's what I say. The interurban just said, okay, what are you going to do, guys? Take a look at it.
Yeah.
I think later
Of course,
on,
there is an
line got
advantage to
dropped.
that. There is an
Later on-
advantage to Odenton.
That line got dropped underneath the corridor. There's evidence of that at Odenton Station. There's like a cut. I think they dropped that line below the corridor at some point. Maybe after the electrified or whatever.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Didn't quite catch that.
The
There is
advantage I see to Odenton is that there's no dead section for the PRR.
Well, if you're going to do that complicated an arrangement, you can play with that. And you're going to have somebody there to make it work. That's
Yeah.
not normally what you do. I mean, pantographs crossing pantographs. Yeah, I mean, you can find them all over Europe by the thousand, so to speak. It's not novel at all. But there's only one light rail modern line in this country. That's 1500. Does anybody know what it is?
Oh, well, no, I don't.
Seattle. The Seattle line is built with 1500. A lot more of them should have been, but that's something that I won't get into. But like St. Louis going 40 miles with 750 volts, it's crazy.
Did Seattle hire somebody from the Milwaukee Road?
No, the story I got in Seattle was, you remember the tunnel was originally built for trolley buses?
Yes, with rails.
And when they ripped out all the track because it really wasn't suitable. But they had to have a substation somewhere in there, and there was really no place to do it. So the only way to make it all work out was to electrify at 1500 volts. So you wouldn't have to have a substation down in the underground for which no provision had been made. So that was the turn. That's what I'm told is the turning point. It makes sense. So the whole Seattle operation is 1500, which is what a lot of them would have been in the first place. But everybody copied San Diego. That was the holy grail. So everybody is 750, even for lines that go 30 miles, which is crazy. But it is what it is.
Thank you.
It is what- And of course, the great DCAC argument was finally sort of settled when Milwaukee was electrified by GE at 3,000. That was GE's answer to high voltage AC, was 3,000 volts DC. And the Milwaukee Road was done that way, and also the Erie Lackawanna. And worked fine. It's a good idea. Now now they converted it to high voltage AC and spent a lot of money because at the time there was a lot of talk about converting the whole of the corridor to 60 cycles to get commercial grid connections, which never happened.
Yeah.
But the Erie Lackawanna electrification was changed over in anticipation of running on 60 cycles. I guess what they're running at 25 kV, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was all in anticipation of the whole corridor being changed, which never did happen. But the 3,000 was perfectly good and working just fine.
Well, they figured they were going to replace the rolling stock anyhow.
But those cars, when they were maintained by the railroad, were known for their reliability. Because the motors were higher voltage, the motors on those cars were fed clean air through a plenum chamber to drop all the dust or snow, whatever. That was all up in the roof. So the air that was pumped down to the motors was nice and clean. And those cars never had a winter problem. They ran when everybody else was shut down. And they're running on 3,000 volts.
You're comparing them to Patco?
Or WMATA in Washington, which officially doesn't run if the snow's over 8 inches. The United States is the only country in the world that has built third rail operations with top contact, in the post-war era. Anywhere you go in the world where there's new metros, it's always underrunning, just like the New York Central. Only Washington Metro and LA is not so bad because they don't snow much in LA. But Washington Metro was a disaster. So they just shut everything down when it gets to 8 inches.
Well, it is an old custom. Remember when the Philadelphia Germantown in Norristown got a steam engine? They still used the horses if it rained.
I hadn't heard that one.
It's actually posted in the schedule.
I'm not sure I understand. Not sure I understand why, but
well, they couldn't get the steam engine wet.
Huh?
Yeah. They didn't want to get the steam engine wet.
Why?
I don't know, but it was rather new, and they did not run it on a rainy day.
Well, maybe it's one of the real early ones didn't have a cab.
That too.
That may be your answer.
Most likely.
Yeah, but they didn't have a cab for the horses either.
They don't need horses. Don't need cabs.
Yeah, but without the cab, they probably didn't have a place to cover the wood either.
Oh.
Well,
get wet wood in there.
Are you tired of your mask smearing your lipstick? Yeah. The 4Ocean Face Mask Support Frame keeps your mask fabric away from your lips, helping you maintain a fresh and smudge-free look throughout your day. Unlike other products on the market today, the 4Ocean Face Mask.
George, your television is on.
Yeah.
Is that you, George?
Ah,
He's Penn's commercial.
He took care of it.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, always good to chat, guys.
All right. Yeah.
I have a wife who's wondering where I am.
Well, thank you very much for a
Well,
nice conversation.
Yes.
Been a very good.
All right, guys.
All right,
Okay,
guys.
good
Have
night.
a good night, guys.
See you all next month.
Right.
Later.
Yeah, John,
Yes,
John V.
yeah.
Amazingly enough, today I went on the web, the Rite Aid website, and bang, I got Mary a appointment for her first vaccination tomorrow.
Super.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
luck of the Irish.
Yeah. And it depends on which one she gets. If it's the
It's two.
shot version like the Pfizer,
It is.
another 21 days and then 2 more weeks after that, and she'll be fully
Yeah.
protected.
Yeah.
If it's a Moderna, it's 4 weeks.
Moderna's a couple of days more.
Yeah.
Out here, they just announced the Allegheny County is one of many groups giving out shots, and all the healthcare facilities like UPMC, Allegheny Health Network, they give somebody a shot and they scheduled you right away for the second one. Apparently, Allegheny County has it, and
Oh,
now
yeah.
they found all sorts of glitches. So people with a card that says "I got first shot" are listed as not even having one.
Oh boy.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's really a horrible situation for anybody trying to get it.
All right, guys.
I
Stay well,
got
you
my
guys.
second shot today, but the
Right
Pfizer,
on.
but Montgomery County started the Moderna, so they scheduled it in 4 weeks rather than the 3
Ah,
weeks.
jeez. Can't win.
Well, I got Pfizer 1 more week, and I'm allegedly fully vaccinated.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
You got
Okay,
it.
good night, everybody.
yeah, have a good night.
Good
Enjoy
night.
Easter.
Good night.
For those
Happy
of you who do
Easter.
that,
Happy
Thank
Easter.
good to see you.
Happy Easter.